Okay, right, so I'm going to move on to inking some of this. What am I in the mood for? This is all going to be changed. We now have a letterer, thankfully, and a letterer, if you didn't know, is essentially going to take the things that I've put up here as a guide, um, with all the text that was written by the author, Joe, who again I think All 22 is probably his best work yet, um, and our author, Nguyen Tran, is going to fix this. Now, I am not the best letterer, I'll be honest, but it is something I would like to learn in the future, especially when we're doing things like bounty and whatnot. But what I want to do is I want to take some of this. These are just the pencils, and I'm essentially going to ink over it. Add a little bit of tricks here and there, and I'll show you exactly what I mean by that if we have time. But I'm not going to be on for ages. Maybe do about an hour, see what we can do. Possibly these faces, these two panels here, this one and this one, possibly this one as well. Or I could just ink all of this, and hopefully, or this last panel here. And because this is a manga, it essentially goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it goes in that order, which, looking at it, doesn't seem like it flows as well. I'll maybe play about with some of the pictures then, here and there. Like if you flipped it, I think actually the whole thing looks like it moves in this direction a lot more. Hold on. So instead it kind of goes like this. So it goes like that. So I feel like the whole thing should maybe be flipped. And when that works, so that part to the next part looks like it just goes here. I wonder if I remove this panel, keep this one, push it over, then it would flow better. That's what we're going to do. I think that would work better. Right, let's remove this. I think that's the best thing to do. Delete. Move this over. Extend this. Push this across. I mean, even the dialogue works better, I think. Because now that flows better. So let's take this first part and possibly just enlarge it ever so slightly. Move some of this dialogue around so it fits a bit better. think that works better. Yeah, that works better. Let's move this panel down a little bit as well. Good, that works better. We can take this, put it on the line of sight. That looks so much better. Yep, 100%. Great. I don't know why I did that. That flows nicely. Okay. Let's save that. Well, maybe I'll move that closer. Okay, see, this is this is why you need to play about with it a bit as well, because it's through this trial and error, through this playing about with it, that you realize actually something's flow and something's don't, and also why you should have a rough draft, a rough layout, because it helps so much. So let's get these panels done. At least get this panel done. Thing is, I don't like the face in... Where are you? Right. Let's get rid of the dialogue. Okay. 1, 2, 3. So this is 2. Nope, sorry. There's 3. Right. This face isn't great, and I want to change it because it doesn't look like the character as well as it should. This is the first page, by the way, I'm going to show you. So this is the guy that we're looking at here, and you can see very different in terms of his face, and this just it doesn't work. So we need to change this to make it look like the guy. You know, that's kind of key. Yeah, when you're making comic books, is to try and get as or be as consistent as you can. Comic manga, the idea is that you want to be as consistent as you can. So one thing about manga, and I think I took this for granted initially at first as well, but there are so many subtle ways that the face of each character is different. And with comic books, I think it's a little bit more obvious. Different bone structure, different face structure, different lines to show how old they are. There's all sorts, right? I know to some extent manga does that as well, but I think it's more subtle because there's less lines to actually use. So because of that, there are. Let me change the expression on his face ever so slightly. Because of that, it seems like every character is a little bit more the same, and by that I mean they look very similar. Whereas when it comes to Western style comics, I think it's easier to tell. It's easier to tell that it's a different person. I think part of that as well is because there's they're wearing costumes and things. And I think once you have So, for example, the Spider-Man costume is much more recognizable than the Peter Parker, right? Um, and mainly because different artists will portray that character in a different way. And but the Spider-Man suit is essentially going to be the same. Superman, Spider-Man, Batman, all of their suits are ever so slightly different in variations here and there. But you know it's Spider-Man, you know it's Superman because of a couple of key characteristics. Superman being red cape, pants, the well, I mean some costumes don't have the pants. The red cape, the what's it called? S curl, the blue suit, all that's quite iconic for Superman, right? Batman, you got the ears, you got the black suit, you got the. I mean, every one of the costumes has a very specific thing um, that attributes the costume itself. That everyone can almost know for certain is the costume itself. Even Clark Kent, though, I think is someone who's a little bit more obvious. He is glasses and a bit of a nerd, right? Everyone knows that as Clark Kent. But for example, if you saw Bruce Wayne, could you tell the difference between Bruce Wayne or Superman without glasses? And only a few, in my opinion, artists have done that well. Some of them, I think could do a better job. And that's not a criticism of their art. It's a criticism of the character's original design being very similar, and I kind of that's what it was like at that point. I mean, you think about Hal Jordan as in Green Lantern, right? So if you have a look at Green Lantern, Green Lantern was and is still is uh, a very easy character to get kind of left behind. He's not exactly the most iconic of. I mean, he is iconic to some extent, obviously, but he's not exactly the most famous DC character. I would argue that someone who is more like John Stewart, the Black Green Lantern, he's probably more famous at this point than maybe Hal Jordan is, arguably. And then Kyle Rayner, for example, which few people actually know about, even though he's quite big in the stories nowadays. At least I think he is. I've not read the stories in a while. And I think back then, and I'm talking about, from like the 1930s all the way up to possibly the 1950s, 60s, it was less obvious to know which character was on screen. Say, for example, in Justice League, was it Superman without his glasses? Was it Batman? Was it Hal Jordan? There were subtle differences. Whereas now, I think there are bigger changes, there are bigger differences that you can kind of tell now which character is which. But I think they've actually worked on that. They've put effort into doing that more so that audiences aren't confused or as confused. And I think manga has gone the similar way, where actually originally, if you look at the way the artist has drawn a face, if you were to zoom in on that face and see a close up of that person, could you definitely tell it was them was it the right character? It's hard to tell, and I think to some extent that's what it's like now as well. So it's not a commentary per se on how good the artist is. It's more about the design of the character originally. In which case, I'm not going to say that every single one of my designs have a unique factor, because that's not necessarily true. But I will say that I do my best to try and think like what is the one thing that makes this character, and how do I make sure that that's maintained. So, it's just small things to look out for as advice. Also, what I've done is, once the camera panel pulls into here, this curve right beside it will lead you into this larger panel. So it's like in the same way that this curve up here is doing so. You start off here, move along the line, got the camera following the eyes up, and then that curve pushes you back down, Shadowproof Publishing, and you're back here. Camera, 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 back to this thing, back to the eye line, and back here. This one, again, 1, 2, they're similar, they're beside each other as natural progression, so this one works for us as well. It's manipulating the eye to go where you want it to go. And I think we managed that. I think that worked. So let's rough that and put this in. These first 2 pages, by the way, will hopefully be coloured. So if you look at that, this is the original, and this is the fixed face. So there are some slight differences, but I think overall, overall, it looks better. And I will change it as we're inking it as well. So my go-to brush, Turnip pen, for outline. Now the outline is quite important to me because it creates your silhouette, and it's important to know you have strong lines in the silhouette. That I have learned from many bits of advice, from criticisms, which 100% take on board, and I completely agree with. Strong lines are what help you get a job. For inside things, I prefer using a textured pen. It gives it just a little bit more edge, and it plays more to my strengths when it comes to line weight. So if you notice, I'm using the same kind of size, but I can do something really thin or something quite thick. And I like doing a variety. So yeah. One thing I have noticed, because I've been doing something more on traditional pencil and paper, and it's I think I'm still better with a standard pencil and paper. Now bear in mind, when I'm working, and I work a lot, thankfully, I'd never use traditional pen and paper anymore. I used to, when I first started off doing this, I used to do traditional pen and paper because I thought I was better, and I was right. I mean, I'm better with pen and paper than I am compared to digital stuff. Although I do think my digital work has improved, that's not to say that it's as good as my traditional work. What I do, by the way, is I make a character sheet. And a lot of people do this because it's really, really helpful. And you create what we call turnarounds. And turnarounds, if you're not sure, are used in things like comics and manga, and not so much manga because of how fast-paced everything is, but there are character designs done for every kind of major character, and sometimes that's just like a very simple drawing. Oh, I don't feel confident right now. So I think that's an issue, is that I don't feel confident in my line work so much right now. So I don't know. Anyway, um, so I make these things. Animation does this a lot, which is useful. It's essentially creating this, what the character looks like from all angles, turning around, hence turn around, front, side, back, all that jazz. And that helps me. And I'm, in the same kind of way that comic artists do this as well. And what happens is, when you are in the middle of, say, inking or drawing, and you're like, dang, what does their face actually look like when they're looking up? Or what does their face look like when, they're angry? Then you have a reference for that, all good to go. And there's nothing that, by the way, necessarily wrong with using references as part of your artwork. Where I draw the line is when you directly copy something. And I think a lot of artists feel the same way. If it feels like their art is just being stolen, why would you feel happy about that? I guess this is the big AI argument as well. But if you feel like your art is being stolen, then you are going to feel bad about that. You're going to be annoyed. And especially if someone else maybe gets the credit for it where you didn't, even though it was your idea originally. Like back in 2000 and I want to say 13, 14, DC brought out a bunch of covers, which was like selfies, because obviously selfies were big at that point, or big-ish, maybe starting to get a bit tired out at that point. And I had drawn a picture of Batman and the Joker celebrating their 40th anniversary. So I think it might have been 2014. So I had drawn a picture of Batman and the Joker. I put it on Instagram, and just the Batman taking a selfie with the Joker, and it was something like, you don't look a day over 37 or something like that. I can't remember what I wrote that the Joker said. In any case, I drew that. I posted that, and it was maybe about a month later or something. DC had brought out all these selfie things, and it's one of those things that's purely coincidental. I don't for 1 minute believe that DC saw my stuff and just went, oh yeah, let's steal that idea. I actually think it was just purely coincidental. Although if it was stolen, could you imagine? Yeah, could you imagine? And no way do I claim to be the best artist in the world. But back then I was worse, because less practiced. Anyway, the fun thing about the whole, when that happens, because I don't know, it felt like it happened a lot to me. The fun thing about when that happens is that you feel like actually, maybe it was a good idea. Somebody stole it like that. Maybe it was a good idea. Anyway. I'm going to show you a little technique that I like to do. So the idea behind his hair is that he's going to have a bit of a fade. So what I like to do is take the droplets. I'll use droplets to build in this idea of a fade, and I'll show you exactly what that looks like in a second. See, now it looks like one eye is bigger than the other. If I get rid of this, so one eye is bigger than another. So let's fix it. First off, change the angle. One eye is genuinely bigger than the other. Next, move the pupil. Now they're both looking in the same direction. See, this is the thing though, I mean, if I was doing this, and again, I've said I feel like I'm better with traditional art than I am with digital, but you can't really fix things like that when it comes to traditional art. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm just adding this bit of grey just to make it stand out a bit more. He's backlit by things, big signs and whatnot, so this just kind of helps emphasize that for one, but also makes it stand out. So what I'll do is I will add a little bit of just correct it ever so often, ever so slightly, sorry. And a little bit of artistic hatching. And that helps, one, make it interesting as opposed to just a big block. But adding in lines here and there keeps the eye interested. Otherwise the eye can get bored. Breaking it up with things like highlights. And small lines like that. And now for my little bit of fun, I add a bit of flair. So I add soft brush, something 50, and just from the side, just pull in a little bit like that. See, that adds so much more interest. And I will also, I think I'll just do the whole manga thing and make sure the eyes are essentially white. That's one thing that I noticed about manga quite early on, is that they really have, every character when it needs to has these kind of piercing eyes. And it's really cool. Like, I'm no doubt in my mind that it's done on purpose. Obviously it's done on purpose. But there's no doubt in my mind that the reason they did that originally was to create such a piercing look to the character. You know, the focus of the attention is where the eyes are. The eyes are the window to the soul. The eyes are the most important emotional capture or display that a person can show. So yeah, why not? Eyes are super important. You leave that one. And what I will also do is add a little bit of just on that side. See? I mean, it looks pretty good. I'm quite happy with that. Now from there, put in the background and we're good to go. But I'll do a little bit of call that grey. And this is my plan, by the way, because I'm going to colour it. If you watch this, I change everything to like a colour mode, right? I'm going to add, say, let's just put this in for funsies, and you can just kind of colour it in. And obviously I will do something a little bit different, because everything will have like whites and all that kind of stuff as well. But when you colour it in like that, it creates, you can do all sorts. You know, you got there's a kind of a nice skin tone, for example, as part of it. But you know what isn't coloured will be there you go. So you know what I mean, that really, I think it just looks nice. Adding a little bit more like a dark brown, as it were, reddish hue to the eyes. You know, the green for the hat, because it was they were doing the team was Greenville something. So you know, so it works. I mean, I kind of love that idea, that adding colour to it like that. To me, that just looks nice. But that's only like kind of one step to it. If I'm gonna do that very subtly, and on top of that, I'll add some colours as a multiply thing. That's just like an idea that I wanted to show. And so it's still you can still do a black and white version, as you are probably aware, like so. Anyway, extra. Jay, it's not even a podcast. I'm not even doing. Right, this is just see what happens. Okay, I didn't realize you was here. So sorry. When did you send that? Anyway, it's not a podcast. I am just streaming my drawing. That's it. It's so sensitive. I feel bad, I really do, because I didn't honestly know that you were there. I don't know why I'm feeling bad about doing the podcast per se, because I'm not doing the podcast. I'm just streaming. I'm doing my job, bro. I'm doing my job. And some people just can't handle a job getting done. Okay, so I don't know what the accent. As soon as you come in, Jay, as soon as you're on, I'm doing like accents and all sorts. There you go. Do you know what's up with my lines today? I'm not feeling great with my lines today. This doesn't look good. Right. So when my lines don't fit properly, I like to just go back over it because some of them turn a little bit more than they should. But it looks better when you just cut back on it a little bit. And I want this kind of texture feel with this line. Like it's a manufactured background. You know, so it's not necessarily perfect, but it is sleek. I even think I might make that a bit lighter. Too light. Somewhere in between. There you go. It's not bad. So you can tell it takes like an hour. It takes like an hour for me to do this. A panel. I might call it there. I think I will. I've got this to do. Let's call that rough. One thing, before I go, one thing I like to do is I've got the background and I've got everything else there. So what I actually like to do, now if colorists kind of hate this, but there's no need to hate me for it, because I've got my, why am I doing this? Because I've got like solid foundation as it were for my outline. I'll just duplicate a layer from my outline. I'll essentially fill in the gaps. Like so. Create what would be an inner layer. which I can then put as white. Now what that allows me to do is essentially create an opportunity for me to draw a complete background in. And when I have a complete background, so if I get rid of inline, outline, the grey and the white, then if I was to make the background complete, then I could literally just take the grey here and I could put in more of a background, so I can keep everything somewhat consistent and the same and interesting. And once I've done all that, where are you, ballpoint pen? Once I've done all that, then I can put in the rest of my stuff back in. There's the grey, but then there's the white that covers it all. See how that works? And that works better, I think, because the background looks like a full image. You know, the background is a full image now, and everything kind of flows a bit better. So that's kind of the reason why I like to do it. And colorists don't like it because, you know, there's essentially like a white background there now. But set everything to a multiply layer and it works out in the same way. Okay, so I'll leave it there. That's that panel done. I'm quite happy with the way that panel worked out. I will continue to finish this later on this week, hopefully. Maybe I'll be streaming a little bit more consistently. In any case, that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Maybe something of a tutorial. Hopefully it helped you with your own projects. If you do have any questions, please do comment below in these, you know, where you can comment. Join us at Patreon/Midnight Comics because, you know, everything's free now. And you know, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Follow us on Instagram as well. Same thing, Midnight Comics. Don't forget the K in midnight. And I will